I brought chrysanthemums for Mother's Day. My mom slammed the door in my face. There's no place for you here! 4 months later, I bought a house in the suburbs for about $1.2 million. At the housewarming, my relatives practically jumped me. What is this? Some kind of show? Why did you pretend you were broke all these years? My answer shut them up so fast, the whole room went quiet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Emily. I'm 32, and one phone call flipped my life upside down. It was from my aunt, Aunt Diane. We hadn't talked in a few months, even though we'd always been close. Sweetheart, she said, and I could hear the tension in her voice. I need to talk to you. Is everything okay? Last night I had a terrible dream about your parents. I know you haven't spoken in years, but maybe it's time to try again? They're still your family. Family. Sure. I sighed. Aunt Diane was the only relative I still kept in touch with. She knew the whole story. Why, 10 years ago, I cut off my parents, my brother, and my sister. Aunt Di, I really don't think that's a good idea. Just think about it, she begged. Mother's Day is coming up. Maybe that's the right moment? I had absolutely zero desire, but for her sake, I was at least willing to consider it. She'd always treated me like an actual person, not a walking wallet or a disappointment. If this would calm her down, why not think about it? To understand why this phone call was such a big deal, we have to go back 10 years. I was 22. I had just finished a state university in New York with a major in financial markets and investments. I'd gotten a junior analyst job at an asset management company that worked with clients trading on the New York Stock Exchange. I rented a tiny one-bedroom in Queens and was trying to build a career from scratch. Then my grandmother died, my dad's mother. She'd always treated me well, unlike the rest of them. When they read the will, it turned out she'd left her house with a yard to her 3 sons, my father Mark and his 2 brothers. They sold the property and split the money. But the interesting part was this. To each of her 5 grandkids, she left $50,000. My brother Jake, my sister Madison, me, and our cousins Logan and Hannah, each of us got $50,000. Everything was fair, equal. Or so I thought. 3 days after the will was read, my mother called. Emily, come over for dinner tonight, she said. We're getting the whole family together. When I got to my parents' apartment in Jersey City, a typical beat-up high-rise 14th floor peeling paint in the hallway, Jake and Maddie were already sitting at the kitchen table with stone faces. I should have realized right then something was burning. Sit down, Emily, my mom said, setting a mug of tea in front of me. We need to talk about something important. Okay. Your sister is getting married in 4 months. Wow. Congratulations, Maddie. She didn't even smile. Thanks. But we have a problem, Mom went on. Weddings are expensive. And there it was. We think, she added, that you should give your share of the inheritance to your sister for the wedding. I literally went speechless for a few seconds. I'm sorry. What? Madison needs a beautiful wedding, Mom pushed on. That $50,000 will cover the big things, venue, dress, photographer. But that money is mine. Grandma left it to me. Don't be selfish, my dad cut in. In this family, we help each other. Jake got his share, the cousins got theirs. So why am I the only one who has to hand mine over? I asked. Why not split the costs between all of us? Because Maddie needs it more, Mom snapped. She's starting a family. You don't even have a boyfriend. I stood up from the table. No, I'm not giving it up. It's my inheritance, and I'm going to invest it in my future. My sister's face went bright red. You're unbelievable, she hissed. If you don't give me the money, you're not invited to the wedding." "Great," I said. "Don't try to blackmail me." That's when my dad exploded. "Get out of my house!" he yelled. "Greedy little miser. I don't want to see your face here again. From this moment, you're not my daughter." I just stared at him. Sure, they'd always treated me worse than Jake and Maddie. But this was a new level. "Are you serious?" I asked quietly. "Absolutely," Mom said, flat as concrete. "Don't come back until you come to your senses." So I left. No hugs, no goodbye. Nothing. Just the kind of silence you get when someone decides you're worth less than a party. I was hurt, furious, but I wasn't going to cave. After that dinner, nobody called. Not once. For a while, I still tried. Sent birthday messages on WhatsApp to my parents, to Jake, to Madison. Nothing. No replies. Not even a lazy emoji. A few months of cold, deliberate silence later, I stopped trying. And in the meantime, I took that $50,000 and did something unforgivable in their eyes. I invested it. Part of it went into a promising medical tech startup. The rest I spread across bonds and stocks through a brokerage account, watching market reports while other people watched sitcoms. 5 years later, the startup was bought out by a strategic investor, and my share was worth around $700,000. I didn't quit my job. I stayed on as an analyst at the asset management company, but I built my own portfolio on the side. Another 5 years went by. My capital reached about $2.5 million. Brokerage accounts, bonds, foreign assets, stakes in promising projects. Everything worked together like a well-tuned machine. And through all those years, my family never found out about my success. They had completely erased me. They had no idea what I did or how I was doing. Which brings us back to Aunt Diane's call. Mother's Day was 2 weeks away, and I decided, why not at least try? Maybe 10 years is enough time for people to cool off. On Mother's Day, I went to see them. I bought a huge bouquet of chrysanthemums and white lilies at an expensive flower shop and drove out to Jersey City, to the same building where I'd grown up. Nothing had changed. Same peeling paint, same scribbled walls in the stairwell. I went up to the 14th floor and knocked. My mother opened the door. When she saw me, her face went through a whole slideshow of emotions. Surprise, confusion, and finally irritation. "What are you doing here?" "Hi, Mom." "Happy Mother's Day." I held out the bouquet. "I just wanted to talk. Maybe try to fix things?" She didn't take the flowers. Behind her, I could see my dad, Jake, and Madison with her husband. My sister had 2 little kids in her arms, kids I was seeing for the first time in my life. I tried to take a step forward. "Can I come in?" Mom immediately blocked the doorway. "There's no place for you here. Got it? Leave." And she slammed the door right in my face. I stood there, like an idiot, holding this armful of flowers in a dirty hallway that smelled like dust and old cooking oil. After a minute, I forced myself to move. I went back down the same stairs I used to run up as a kid, dumped the bouquet in the first trash can outside, sat in my car and just breathed. Very carefully, like anything more would break me in half. Happy Mother's Day. I didn't tell Aunt Diane right away. I knew she'd be more upset than I was. Instead, I threw myself back into work. My investments kept growing. The portfolio moved past $3 million. My salary at the firm went up again. Queens started to feel too tight. One evening, I came home, looked around my small 1-bedroom and thought, it's time to buy my own place. I called a realtor and laid out my wish list. A house in the suburbs, within an hour of New York City, minimum 3 bedrooms, a decent lot, and, non-negotiable, a pool. Over the next few weeks, we drove all over Westchester County, touring gated communities with security booths and manicured lawns. And then I saw it. A modern house in a gated, business-class subdivision about 40 minutes from Manhattan. Open-plan kitchen and living room with an island. Primary bedroom with a walk-in closet. 2 guest rooms. A 12,000 square foot lot, heated outdoor pool, and a built-in barbecue area. The price was $1.3 million. We negotiated down to 1.2, and I offered to pay in full through escrow, no mortgage. The seller agreed instantly. 3 weeks later, we closed at the title company. Just like that, I became the owner of my own house. Moving day was chaotic, but happy. For years, I'd been collecting furniture and decor, waiting for the right place. Designer armchairs, custom light fixtures, paintings by contemporary artists. Everything finally had a home. I called Aunt Diane to share the news. "Emily, I'm so happy for you," she said. "I'm so proud." "Thanks. I'm thinking about having a housewarming. Will you come see it?" "Of course. Can I tell the rest of the family? They'll want to see what you've accomplished." "Sure. Invite whoever you want. Just Aunt Di. No invite for my parents, Jake or Madison. I don't want them there." We set the housewarming for September, exactly 4 months after that delightful Mother's Day visit. I invited colleagues from the asset management firm, friends from my university days, and told Aunt Diane she could bring any relatives she thought were safe. The day of the party, the house filled up with people. It felt incredible to have my own space and share it with people who actually valued me. My cousins on my dad's side came too, the same ones who'd inherited Grandma's $50,000. Logan walked around with his jaw practically on the floor. This place is insane," he said. "I had no idea. I thought you were kind of scraping by or something." "Thanks," I smiled. "I worked a lot, made good investments." My cousin Hannah pulled me aside. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Your parents always told everyone you had problems with alcohol and gambling. That's why, supposedly, no one talks to you anymore." I almost choked on my champagne. "Seriously?" She nodded. "Yeah. They told that story to everyone who asked why you never came to anything." I laughed once, sharply. "Okay, here's what really happened." I told her everything. About the inheritance. About how they demanded I hand my $50,000 over to Madison's wedding budget. About how they threw me out when I refused, and how they went completely silent for 10 years. "Are you kidding me?" Hannah was stunned. "They cut you off over that?" "Exactly. And now they want back into my life just because they found out about my investments." "That's insane," Logan said, joining us. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that." "It's fine," I shrugged. "Honestly, I'm better off without them." And that was pure truth. The house was gorgeous. My career was taking off. Things with my boyfriend Nathan were great, and I was surrounded by people who genuinely cared. We were in the middle of grilling by the pool when someone started pounding on the front door so hard the walls rattled. I went to open it. On the doorstep stood my entire original fan club. My mom, my dad, Jake, and Madison. Their eyes were blazing with righteous indignation. "What is this circus?" Mom snapped, pushing past me into the foyer. "Why weren't we invited to the housewarming?" "Because you didn't even let me over the threshold on Mother's Day," I said calmly. "You slammed the door in my face, remember?" Dad was looking around, his eyes as wide as saucers. "Where did you get the money for a house like this?" "None of your business, Dad." Mom puffed herself up. You lied to us all these years. Played the poor victim when you were rolling in money. Only rich people can afford a place like this." The whole party had frozen. My guests stood there watching the little show my relatives had brought to my living room. "The size of my bank account is not your concern," I said. "Please leave my house." But Mom wasn't done. She spotted Logan and Hannah and made a beeline for them. "You two need to talk some sense into her," she whined. "Emily ran away and cut us off for no reason. She's been acting like a selfish brat all this time." They looked completely lost, not sure where to put themselves. "I'll repeat this one last time," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Leave my house, or I'll call 911 and report you for trespassing." That finally got through. They stormed out, slamming the door like that would knock some sense into me. After they left, I turned to my guests with a wide smile. "Sorry for the little performance, everyone. Now, where were we? Let's keep the party going." Most of them laughed. The tension slowly drained from the room, but I could see some relatives still had questions frozen in their eyes. I didn't feel like unpacking my childhood right then, so I focused on being the gracious hostess. Later, after everyone left, I sat alone in my living room, replaying what had happened. For 10 years, my parents had been telling everyone that I'd drunk myself into the ground and blown all my money on gambling, painting me as a loser to justify cutting me off. But the second they saw my house and realized I had money, they suddenly wanted back in. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about family ties. It was about money. It had always been only about that. The next morning, my phone went crazy. Calls, voicemails, messages. I didn't pick up, but they left voice notes and texts. From my mother on WhatsApp. "We know you're a successful investor now. You're obligated to share with your family." From my big sister. "I've got a mortgage with Wells Fargo. I'm barely keeping up with the payments. You have to help." From my brother. "I really need a new car. You could lend me some money interest-free, just until I get back on my feet." I read through all that nonsense and just shook my head. 10 years of silence, and the second they learn I have money, they come crawling with their hands out. I blocked all their numbers without replying to a single message. A week later, Aunt Diane called. "Emily, your parents are terrorizing me with phone calls," she sighed. "They're trying to get to you through me." "What did you tell them?" "That they had their chance when you came over on Mother's Day with flowers. They blew it. And I also said I think they only care now because they heard about your money." "Bullseye," I said. "You're right. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Don't give in. You deserve better." I thought that with the block button, it would finally be over. Of course not. They weren't planning on giving up. A couple of weeks later, I was driving home from work. When I pulled up to my gate, I saw a familiar old Hyundai sitting outside. My parents' car. They were waiting. As soon as I drove into the driveway, they jumped out. "Emily, we need to talk," Dad started. "No, we don't," I said. "I blocked your numbers for a reason." "Come on, Em." Mom switched to her sweet, sugar-coated voice. "We're family. Let's handle this like adults. We stopped being family 10 years ago when you kicked me out for not giving up my inheritance." "That was a long time ago." Dad tried to smooth it over. "Everyone said things they didn't mean." "No," I corrected him. "You said exactly what you meant. And the only reason you're here now is because you found out about my money." Mom's fake smile vanished instantly. "So what?" she snapped. "You're supposed to help your family. That's how it works." Where was that family's support when I was starting my career, when I was waiting tables in college, when I came to see you on Mother's Day? They had no answer. "Get off my property," I said. "If you don't, I'll call the police and file a report for harassment and trespassing." They glared at me for a few more seconds, then got back in the car and drove off. I knew it wasn't the end. I was right. A week later, they ambushed me at work. I was walking from the office to my car in the parking garage of a business center in Midtown when the whole crew stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. "Emily, wait!" Jake called. I turned around. Mom, Dad, Jake, and Madison were marching toward me in a little formation. "You have got to be kidding me," I said. "This is stalking now." "We just want to talk," Madison said, putting on her best sad face. "Just 5 minutes." "You had 10 years to talk," I said. "You chose silence. Now it's my turn." "We made a mistake," Mom forced out. "Please forgive us." "For what exactly?" I asked. "For throwing me out? For 10 years of pretending I don't exist? For lying to everyone that I'm a drunk, degenerate gambler? Or just for missing the part where I became rich?" They all stared at the ground. "We heard about your investments," Dad finally said, switching tactics. "Good job. You've done well for yourself." "Without any help from you," I pointed out. "Look," Jake tried the emotional route. "Yeah, things got rough before, but we're still family. Families forgive each other. Families support each other in hard times." "Families also don't make up disgusting stories about each other," I said. "You're strangers to me." "Please, Emily," Madison added, trying to muster a tear. "I really am having trouble with my mortgage. If you could help just a little—" And there it was, the core of it. "Let me be very clear," I said. "I don't owe you anything. Not a dollar. This is my money, earned with my brains and my work. You gave up the right to ask for my help the moment you told me I was no longer your daughter." I turned around, got in my car, and drove away, leaving them in the middle of the parking garage. After that little scene, I doubled down. I spoke to a lawyer about a restraining order, what my options were if they kept showing up. Just knowing I had that option made it easier to breathe. But oddly enough, after that confrontation, they finally backed off. Months passed. No calls, no surprise visits, no drama. For me, honestly, everything was going better than I could have planned. 2 years went by without my parents trying to break into my life again. They were the best 2 years of my life. My investment portfolio crossed the $5 million mark. I got another promotion at work. Nathan and I moved in together and started thinking about getting engaged. The house turned into a kind of center of gravity. Every month I hosted dinner parties, holiday gatherings, summer barbecues by the pool. Aunt Diane was a regular guest, along with Logan, Hannah, and other relatives who'd become my real family. At one of those parties, Logan pulled me aside. I need to tell you something," he said. "What's up?" "Your parents have been asking me about your parties." "What do you mean?" "Someone told them you host these big gatherings," he sighed. "They wanted to know if I could invite them sometime." I couldn't help laughing. "And what did you say?" "That I don't have the right to invite people into your house. If they want to come, they have to ask you directly." "And what did they do?" "Nothing. I think they know what your answer would be." "Exactly," I said. "After everything they've done, they should understand I'm never letting them back in so they can enjoy my house and my success." Later that night, as the party wound down, we ended up talking again about the old stories, about the supposed alcoholism and gambling. Logan finally asked the question he'd been dancing around. "Okay, really, what happened between you and your parents? Because that whole addiction thing obviously sounds like complete garbage." So I laid it out again, this time in front of a small circle of people who actually cared. I explained about the inheritance, about the demand to hand my $50,000 to Madison's wedding fund, about being tossed out of the house for refusing. And now, I finished, they only want back in because they sniffed out my investment success. That's insane. Logan shook his head. I'm sorry you had to live through that. It's okay, I said. I really am better off without them. And I meant it. A few months later, Aunt Diane called again. This time her voice was worried. Emily, I need to tell you something, she said. Your dad had a heart attack. My heart clenched. How is he? Is he in the hospital? What do the doctors say? He's in the hospital, but his condition is stable. It wasn't the most serious kind, from what they told me. I see, I said, and went quiet. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, trying to sort through the mess in my head. On one hand, this was my father, the man who used to carry me on his shoulders, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, the man who also told me, at 22, that I was no longer his daughter because I wouldn't hand over my inheritance. Did I want to call? Go see him? Show up at the hospital? No, that was the honest answer. I hoped he would recover. I didn't wish him dead, but I didn't want to go back into that role of the convenient, financially useful daughter who swallows everything just to keep the peace. They made their choice 10 years ago. I made mine. They chose a wedding budget over their relationship with me. They chose lies and gossip, stories about alcohol and gambling, over telling the truth. They chose to slam the door in my face on Mother's Day rather than let me cross the threshold. And I chose myself. I chose a life where I'm not an ATM, where family means the people who actually show up for you, not just the ones who share your last name and your blood type. Aunt Diane, my cousins, my friends, the man I love. These people are my family now. They support me without demanding payment. They show up to my barbecues to be with me, not with my pool. Sometimes people tell me, but they're still your parents. You have to help them. No, I don't. I sent them no money. I didn't run to the hospital. I didn't suddenly forget how they treated me when they thought I was useless and broke. Instead, I went out to the backyard, sat on my own deck, and watched the sun set over my pool, the one I paid for with my own brain, my own work, my own risks. Do I feel guilty? Honestly, no, not anymore. They taught me, in the most brutal way possible, that blood ties are not a lifetime subscription to my resources, my time, or my heart. I brought chrysanthemums on Mother's Day and got a door in my face. 4 months later, I bought a $1.2 million house and filled it with people who actually see me. They once said there was no place for me in their home. Now there's no place for them in my life. But you tell me, did I go too far? Or did I finally go just far enough?